Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about a book, The Righteous Mind. His topic is Moral Foundations, a book by Jonathan Haidt. His theory is that different people have different theories of different sets of moral foundations, different ways by which they judge right and wrong. And his subtitle is Good People Can Disagree Because We Have Different Frameworks for Deciding Right and Wrong. And it varies from society to society, from generation to generation, from liberal to conservative on the political spectrum, and from male to female. So I have one sense of right and wrong, and you may have another. And if I talk about sex, politics, and religion, you may think I'm wrong, and I may think it's essential that we do because the future of society is at stake. Anyhow, you and I differ. And as I mentioned, we differ by nationality, by generation, by politics and sex. This is sometimes awkward. But there are important issues, and my question is, can we talk? Now, for millennia, we, white men of European extraction, kind of set the rules for the world. A century and a half ago, we ruled more than 80% of it, and we kind of set the rules where we governed, and others gladly adopted our rules because they seemed to work. Half the written constitutions in the world are copied from the American Constitution of 250 years ago. We, white men, established and dominated the church, universities, schools, business, common law, trade guilds. Just about everything was done our way. But that has changed radically in the last century. Other cultures have been admitted. I'd say we white guys gave in graciously, although it might have been coming anyhow, to minorities among us, such as the Jews, the Muslims, and the Hispanics, and to immigrants, same groups, coming into our countries. And women became more dominant. Women got the right to vote, and then they entered the workplace, and they rose to the ranks of the bosses in politics and work, and they have reset the rules. There's a book that I'll talk about in the future, The Great Feminization, describing how it worked. The author thought that women probably wouldn't like this book, so it was written under a pseudonym, J. Stone. But the book has been so well received that J. Stone opened up and said, I'm a woman. And I'm going to review that book at some point for this audience. So we differ on 5 moral foundations. These listed here. Well, let me tell you about them. The first is question of harm and care. Now, it's our human nature to care for our fellow human being. All of us are inclined toward kindness, gentleness, empathy, nurture, and so on. However, this is only one of 5 moral foundations, and if it's in conflict with another one, there's a question of sometimes we have to decide among competing interests. So this one competes with others. Likewise, the idea of fairness. Now, we all know that fairness is inherent in the human being. If I pour 2 of my kids a cup of Coke, they're going to take a ruler to measure, to make sure that they both got the same amount of Coke. This applies elsewhere. The feminists want to make sure that there are exactly the same number of women managers as male managers. Not all else being equal, regardless of all else. They want equality. And related to that, some people want equity. They want equal outcomes. Even though everybody has an equal chance, they want to see that everybody has equal success. There are arguments about that one. Then there's a question of loyalty. We conservatives see concentric circles of loyalty. I'm loyal to my family, then to my clan or extended family, then to my tribe, and then to my locality or my oblast, and then to my country, and then to all of humanity. Others say there are no circles, everybody gets treated the same. In my Indo-European ancestors, there was an idea of Männerbund, where all men in the tribe were equal. We stood equally in a fight, and we had to be equally brave. And if any man broke ranks to let the enemy through, he was ostracized from the tribe. Better to die. And if everybody was willing to die, fewer would die. And they could do this because they knew that if they died, the others of the tribe would take care of their children, take care of their wives, their widows, and nobody would bother their wives while they were away fighting. So there was great cohesion. And with this went patriotism and self-sacrifice and a number of other virtues that rose us Indo-Europeans to the leadership of the world a century and a half ago. There's respect for authority. This is something we get from our monkey ancestors. There's an alpha monkey in every troop, and that monkey demands authority, and it's in our instinct to give them authority. So we defer to authorities, experts, and establish rules and traditions. It's a tradition here in Ukraine to cross yourself when you drive in front of a church. If other people on the bus are doing that, I'll probably do it too. Different people differ on how much they respect authority. And then there's a question of purity and sanctity. Muslims and Jews don't eat pork or shellfish. Why? Because the Holy Book says so. And they just don't do it. Almost all of us reject incest. Now, there are good scientific reasons why we should do that, but we don't reject it out of sense of science. We reject it because we think it's just wrong. And it's a lot easier to get people to conform if it's just plain wrong. Some other things, such as homosexuality, were in that category when I was a kid, but they have moved. And they've moved in a very predictable way. Women and liberals prefer individualizing, stress the individualizing virtues. And one of these, just mentioned, is homosexuality. They say it's nobody's business what two men do in a bedroom. Stay out of it. Whereas we used to have laws in most jurisdictions saying you shouldn't do that and you go to jail if you do. But women and liberals, more than conservatives, look out for the interests of criminals and immigrants. So it's a question of who should be allowed in at the border. They say everybody. We say, no, it's our country. We'll decide. They say that criminals should not be penalized just because they happen to be in jail. They should have comfortable beds and good food. And we say they knew that when they committed the crime. Let them put up with crummy food and hard beds. And they have less concern for the more social issues, the broader social impact of what they do, and more for feeling. We men and conservatives tend to stress the binding virtues, the things that support all of society. Loyalty to the country. Without loyalty, you have anarchy. Authority, ditto. If you don't respect authority, you have anarchy. So we say you should be careful how you choose the authority, but respect it once you got it. And sanctity. Once again, there's a way that we do things, and everybody should do it the same way, and more or less and respect the same order of things. Sanctity of the human body. We should not allow people to carve up children because they think they were born the wrong sex, and we should not allow doctors to force us to take injections because it's our body. So that would be questions of sanctity. These are binding values. The upshot is that I'm driven to talk about these things because I'm concerned about the future of our society, which means I look around and I see people aren't getting married and aren't having kids. I say, what's going to happen to our society? And others will say, I'm a woman, you're making me uncomfortable, you're criticizing me for not getting married, shut up. And the question, where does this go? Am I right as a doomsayer? Should I just shut up? Who's willing to listen? This is Haidt's subtitle. We're good people separated by politics and religion. He would argue we should know how to talk to each other. Madam Toastmaster.